You have a part in that. And it's not enough to say, well, we give to the cooperative program. I'm very grateful that we give through the cooperative program. I am deeply concerned that the giving throughout the United States to the cooperative program has dropped by 1/3 in the past 10 years. Instead of over 11% of offerings, we Southern Baptists are now giving less than 7%. The money is about the same because of inflation, but because of inflation, the money being the same doesn't buy the same. If you understand what I'm saying, we have lost our compassion for the cooperative program. We've lost the understanding that this is how we're able to address the needs of people, both of the gospel and both of materially and physically. Our missionaries do a good job of ministering to people in famine, people in crisis situations. But it's because we've already given that makes that possible for us to be able to respond immediately when the need is greatest with those kinds of resources. And we've dropped 30% in the past 10 years of what we've committed to cooperative program. Some churches are picking up part of that slack and saying, well, the church now is the basic mission sending organization, that we will send missionaries to our community, our Jerusalem, and our Judea, and our Samaria, in the uttermost parts of the earth. And a church should be doing that, but that's not enough. What I'm saying is hiring missionaries, a missionary staff of 10,000 people at this point, both home missionaries and international missionaries, hiring 10,000 people is not going to reach 6.5 billion people. And all that they do, it's not going to do it. We're dropping further and further behind every year. Getting through the cooperative program in itself is not going to do the job. The only thing that is going to accomplish the purpose of God in this is that every believer, every one of the 250 million believers in the world, take the gospel to your Jerusalem, your Judea, your Samaria, to the uttermost parts of the earth. That's the only way it can ever be done. And isn't it interesting that that was the only way Jesus ever intended for it to be done? 2,000 years later, we're trying to rediscover the mind and purpose of Christ in order to accomplish His purpose. I hope that we wake up to that it's not reallocating funds. It's not putting more emphasis on representative missions. It's not giving a little bit more, but it's living a life of dedication and sacrifice that you have now become the minister of reconciliation for your world. Is there discomfort around you? Is there conflict? Are people seeing so differently that they can't even talk together? Is families breaking up because of lack of reconciliation? That's your calling. Or nations against nations? Yes. What would have happened? We only woke up to the Muslim world about 30 years ago. It was not on our radar screen to try to convert Muslims. 51% of the world's population lives under the governance of Islamic rulers. That doesn't mean 51% of the people are Muslim. It's about 1/3 of the world is Muslim. And we've just woken up that, the Muslims need the gospel. What would have happened from the New Testament times across North Africa, as we had great churches all across North Africa in the 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century? What would have happened if those churches had continued to proclaim the gospel of Christ, being the ministers of reconciliation, being the light on the hill, being the purity of Christ to their neighbors? The northern half of Africa would be praising God today rather than the very source of Islamic terrorism. What would happen if we had understood? From history, we gather that Philip probably went to India in his lifetime and shared the gospel there. We understand about the Ethiopian eunuch that met Philip out in the desert, and he became a believer. He went to Ethiopia. There's still the Ethiopian Christian church, but it's very, very blended into Islam and not distinctively Christian. What would have happened if every opportunity of sharing the gospel, if we had equipped people to be disciples of Christ, to learn of Him, to become like Him, to equip others to learn of Him and to become like Him, and to equip those to be like Him? John and Peter both were convinced that the gospel was going to be proclaimed to the whole world in their lifetime, and that Jesus was going to come back within their lifetime very soon. They were convinced of that. We don't know what if, but what if Ananias and Sapphira had not lied to the Holy Spirit in the fourth chapter of Acts, and sin entered back into the church in a powerful way in which two people were struck dead because of their treachery with the Holy Spirit? What would have happened if the church had remained pure, teaching people how to be Christ-like, living by the power of Christ in transformation? Well, it doesn't do us much good to contemplate too much on the what ifs. But the what is that if 250 million followers of Christ were totally sold out to Him under His lordship, to where He directed every business trip you made, every trip downtown, every conversation of every believer, it is entirely possible that 250 million followers of Christ could bear testimony to 6.5 billion people within a span of 10 years. It is still possible if we were willing to do it God's way. But we're so comfortable with ordering life around us and making our lives comfortable to break out into the realization that if we're willing to lay down our lives, lay down our ambitions, submit our businesses, submit our families to the Lordship of Christ, and just discover what it would be like if Jesus was absolute Lord of 250 million followers.